Where were you this weekend, Kenny?
I was in... Do you guys know where Great Wolf Lodge is in Washington? It's Centralia is where it is.
Ah.
So, we're talking about accents. I don't know if you want to get back to that. We're talking about how we don't know what the sort of Oregon accent is. And so I was talking to this older guy who worked with turtles. And he was saying basically before... accents were basically over once television was invented. Because at that point, everything was just kind of homogenized. So accents are much less sort of pronounced than they once were.
That's actually such a good point.
And the reason it's so, like, there's not really a California accent, or, like, most people don't recognize it, is because that's the one that's on TV the most.
Oh. So, yeah, because the way I think I talk, it's actually just, like, the way people on TV and on the internet talk. Mm-hmm. Like, there is actually kind of just, like, the American accent very sort of generically, where it's like you don't have like a southern accent, but you also don't really have the like super northern thing.
I'd say there's a difference between the West and the East Coast, though.
Yeah, there is.
Like, that's the biggest difference. You usually that's the one you can tell.
Yeah,
it's not really like California, Oregon, Washington. It's more like West Coast, East Coast.
Right.
You know that like what is it? Like North Dakotans and stuff like that. They sound like from North Dakota. Mm-hmm. Like I swear, I know someone. Yeah, like someone's like from something super Midwest. I don't know what states.
Yeah,
Chicago.
Yeah, I have a lot of Midwestern family, and like the stereotype
Chicago's
is real.
State. It's Chicago, Illinois.
Minnesota.
It's Illinois. People get mad at you if you say Illinois.
Oh, you shouldn't go out driving in the freezing fog. It'll come up right behind you and flip your car.
That like went really Irish.
Flip. The Minnesota.
Irish.
It's understandable that I would make that mistake because the Minnesotan thing comes from like Scandinavian/Irish people because that's where a huge number of them spread to back during the diaspora.
Something really gnarly that people do in the Midwest is, I was talking about it with my roommate. People bake tobacco into cookies.
Oh no!
Isn't that crazy?
No!
That's gnarly.
Oh my god!
So, like,
I don't like that.
What is that even?
Are you always have the crazy tobacco stories? You're just talking about the guy sticking tobacco up his nose, right?
It kind of fascinates me for some reason.
Yeah, but like, what does it do? Does it do something like cooking it in there?
I have no idea. I've talked with people. I talked to a lot of people, used to talk to a lot of people online, and like talking to people, especially when I used to smoke weed, about that, and they'd be like, "Well, I didn't know like weed cookies were a thing. I knew tobacco cookies were a thing." And
what?
Like, wait, what? Like,
I've never heard that. Yeah,
no,
that's crazy.
It is. Yeah.
What's the purpose of a tobacco cookie?
No idea.
Same thing as shoving it up your nose.
Oh my god.
Get fucked up on tobacco.
Wrecks you.
That's like, wow, that'll like clear out your whole life.
Your poor stomach, dude.
Yeah, poor stomach. Probably be really productive in between like periods of intense vomiting.
Yeah, like I think you would just be dizzy.
Like, nicotine it's not like it like messes with your stomach, I feel like, a lot more than like weed does.
Yeah, have you ever had like bad nicotine poisoning?
No, but
no fun. Yeah, back in a few years ago, Lewis and I tried smoking cigars for the first time, and being the like amateurs that we were, we didn't understand that you don't like inhale the smoke from a cigar the same way that you inhale the smoke from weed, because up until that point the only thing we'd ever smoked was weed. And so this was the first time where it's like, let's try like smoking tobacco. What are we going to smoke? Cigars, obviously. We're not going to go buy cigarettes or something like that. So we go down and like to the fucking place in the fancy part of town where you buy like nice cigars, and bought some and like brought them home, and then later that night both got just dreadfully ill, and we were vomiting off the edge of the porch, and you know, just in general kind of like completely ruined and incapacitated. And I have not since smoked a cigar. It definitely like taught me the lesson in that way.
Did it burn the shit out of your throat inhaling it?
No, that was the thing. Is like it was like a delightful experience
was it a
up
good
until
cigar?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Like I think we had got cigars that, at least the guy told us they were good, and we were like, well, if we're gonna get cigars, let's go all in, because we didn't think we were gonna smoke them all just right then. And it was true. We didn't even smoke the whole thing, so it was like a quarter of it probably was enough to get us like really sick. Yeah.
How much did you spend on it?
Oh, I don't know.
If you can guess.
I actually have no idea. Like, I don't even want to guess, because my guess will just be my guess of how much a cigar costs. And I truly don't know how much a cigar costs.
Yeah,
I've only bought one time.
The only cigar I've ever bought was are they cigarillos?
The little mini ones.
Yeah, and that's like $129.
Oh, like Swisher Sweets or something? Yeah, okay. Yeah, Swisher Sweets, people buy those just to roll blunts.
Yeah, that's what I bought mine for.
Yeah.
It's,
I've smoked them before, just straight Swisher.
Oh, yeah.
It's rough.
I can imagine.
For a while, Lewis and I, it was really Lewis, but I started playing along, had like this weird game / rule, I guess, where if we found cigarettes just lying around on the ground, we had to smoke them. That was just like what we decided to do, like that summer.
Can't litter. Don't let it go to
right
waste. Yeah.
and like I guess in our minds it was making us more gnarly or something. It's like, hey, now I'm like I'm glad to know like what a cigarette like is, you know, when you smoke it, kind of what it's all about. Leads to me knowing that I don't need to smoke them. There's nothing about them I found like really appealing, but at the same time it wasn't awful, actually. I guess, like, you know, pretty fine. I don't know. Those are my 2 times, besides the time where I learned the difference between joints, blunts, and spliffs.
That was an interesting occasion.
Which was
yeah, he was smoking weed at my house, totally enjoying this blunt. But I guess he thought it was a joint, you know. And the difference between a blunt and a joint is that blunt's rolled with tobacco. So he immediately.
What's the difference between a spliff and a blunt? Then?
A spliff is like rolling papers with tobacco and weed.
Oh, okay.
A blunt is, you know, it can
like
be
a cigar.
Yeah, it's the dark wrap on the outside.
Yeah.
People use like backwoods and stuff.
I just remember because he had, like, the second he realized it was tobacco, he's like, fuck.
Yeah, I was like, I really don't like tobacco, you know.
Yeah.
And actually, since then, I've become more fine with it. Where now, if there is tobacco in certain things like blunts or whatever, it doesn't bother me. But man, I used to fucking really hate it. After those 2, really just like.
Well, it can give you a bad impression, man.
Yeah.
Like, and it is something you have to develop a taste for. You know, it's addictive. So, like, it's like coffee, man. You know, like that kind of stimulant stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's too intense at first, and then you're kind of fine. You know.
It's true how coffee's somewhat. It somehow grows on you when you're a youngin'.
It can mix, like, tobacco can mix weird with weed too. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. It gives you that head rush always with it. So if you have like already head rushy weed, you'll be like, your mind will just kind of fry.
Yeah.
The only time I've ever like smoked tobacco was my brother. I keep bringing my brothers up, but he handed me a cigarette, and I smoked it, and it was like, I was like, this is gross. And he was like, good. He takes it out, just puts it out, never smoke another one again. It's like, okay, because he had problems quitting.
Oh yeah. Yeah, people who are trying to quit cigarettes are usually the ones who are really going to tell you never to start. And, that's advice I intended to take. But yeah, man, we have to turn off that heater. Y'all keep bantering on.
Biodad, that's like part of his identity.
Yep. The thing is, it's
smoke cigarettes like constantly.
It's so insane to me because like I feel like tobacco used to, maybe it's always been like that, but before cigarettes, tobacco was like a kind of like weed, where you're like, you kind of have to load up like a bowl of tobacco in like your pipe, or you get a cigar, which is like, you don't maybe it is a thing, but I feel like people don't chain smoke cigars as much.
Sigmund Freud.
There are people who like eat them. I don't know if we might have actually literally told this story on the last podcast. No, we didn't. We didn't.
We didn't talk about that.
But Sydney's uncle Did we talk about this?
I'm not
in
sure.
the last one?
Not
I
on the
remember this.
podcast.
Yeah, well,
It's not
Sydney's uncle, in any case, eats cigars. Like, doesn't smoke them or, like, anything like that. There's some people who chew them and spit them out into a bowl,
But he swallows it.
but he swallows it. He fully eats it. And it's just... Whoa, dude.
that man, I don't know if you've ever like gotten some weed in your mouth, but imagine like a little tobacco in your mouth or anything, so that it's fucking disgusting. Like, I can't imagine wanting to swallow that shit.
Right. Having, like, any kind of plant, I think, in
It's
your
like
mouth.
swallowing burnt matter. Dude, oh my god, I went to a party last week and I watched somebody Wu-Tang a fucking blunt. You know what that is?
No, I don't.
Do you know what Wu-Tang
No.
blunt is? Okay, so it's where it's at the very end of it, and it's like literally the last bit, and you fucking and just swallow that shit.
Oh.
No.
With it still lit.
No!
Oh, yeah.
Why is that a thing?
And the guy
Wow.
did it.
With a name? What?
Because you Wu-Tang that shit.
I've heard
you
of
know?
that before, and I hadn't remembered it until you started talking about it.
Yeah, no, it's.
Oh my god.
I couldn't. I was like, oh, somebody's gotta Wu-Tang it. And, I'm like, and he's like, oh yeah, I will. I'm like, no fucking way. I've never seen someone do that in person. Like, and I've seen people try and then like cough a lung out. But like the guy, like, he just sucked that shit down. Like, like
Wow.
nobody's bit. Like,
Have you seen that? I think it's the guy is from Oregon. I remember him like, and it might be Washington that he's from, but he's like hot dog shooting where he just like inhales an entire hot dog at once.
oh my god.
No.
And he and then like coughs it back out, and then he inhales like 4 in a row, and then coughs them all back out individually.
Nice.
And he talks in between them. It's like not stopping him from talking.
Wow, that's
Wait, so is he eating them or is he breathing them in?
Breathing.
Tell me he
It's
gets
like
paid.
he has them like this, and he goes like, whoop.
amazing.
It's that noise.
That is really bad.
I'm gonna find this video so you guys can watch it after the podcast.
Oh god.
Wow.
It is
That
intense.
is remarkable.
Thanks. I hate it. Oh, we have a cat meowing very loudly. They make such sad noises.
You want to see it?
Oh no.
It's fastest hot dog shooter in the Northwest.
Oh.
For anyone interested.
Okay, I will look it up.
Does he have the record for most dogs swallowed?
I think he titled the video himself. I don't think it's an official record. But damn, he shoots that hot dog fast.
That like makes my body feel
No,
not
yeah.
good.
Yeah, no, it is an uncomfortable thing to watch.
Like the idea.
He's still like okay with it, like he's unpained by it.
The idea of inhaling anything that isn't like distinctly some kind of an air or an aerosol is like a super gnarly concept.
Do you think it'd be possible to like inhale a hot dog so quickly that it goes into your lungs, like into one of your
Your lungs aren't like bags. They're
I
like
guess that's a good
sponges.
Mhm.
You could get it you could get like here.
I guess you're right. Yeah.
Oh.
And then, like, but after that,
But, like
yeah, it's
thoroughly
yeah.
lodged.
Yeah. The lungs are not. We're
I guess.
sorry.
Yeah, I guess your
It's a gnarly image.
That is so.
your main concern would be like
That's got to be a hell of a morgue report.
Yeah,
He
you're-
died of hot dog lung.
main concern. Oh man, have you ever had like a laryngospasm?
No.
It's when especially when you have like a really sore, like irritated throat, and you like one time when I was a little kid drinking, I had to drink some cough syrup and just made my throat close just out of nowhere randomly. Gnarly.
I mean, I've had allergic reactions. I've never had a full closure though, dude. Yeah.
I don't think I've had a full closure where I just cannot breathe. I
Oh
don't
my
think that's
God.
happened to
Oh.
me.
Real close though.
Yeah.
I had a lemon head stuck down
Oh.
my pipe one time.
Oh, I've done that with a mint.
One time I got a mint stuck in my nasal cavity, and that blinds you. Like
What?
yeah, I was blind for like a good 2.5 hours or something like that. Like while I waited for like a mint to dissolve in my nasal cavity.
That's
And like
crazy.
in the end, like I was so desperate for it to be over that I was like literally I didn't care anymore. I was like taking buckets of water and just inhaling the water through my nose and then like hacking it out my mouth,
Wow.
just trying to
Were
like
you
flush.
completely blind?
Yeah, like essentially, if I opened my eyes, I could like see lights and whatnot, but like the pain was so intense that like doing so was impractical. I was just always eyes closed, and even if they were open, it was so like you know.
Oh,
Just,
okay. I thought you were like actually like.
No, I mean like
suddenly just dark.
no physical blindness, I guess.
Do that.
But like you know, it's blindingly painful, and
how
like
did you
literally
get it?
you can't see.
How did
because
you
of
get it stuck up your nose?
I was just eating it and like breathed in at the wrong time mid bite, and it just like it wasn't the whole thing. It was like one of the like chunks of it that had crumbled off, like got sucked up in there.
Whoa.
Luckily, it wasn't the whole thing, you know. But yeah, having any kind of mint just like stuck in your nasal cavity, miserable.
I don't plan on it.
Yeah.
I'm
Gosh.
trying to think of. No, I've only really choked once.
Like, have you had any like complicated medical problems?
Complicated medical problems.
Yeah, because I've been blessed, just sort of like overall no like weird. The worst disease I've ever had was sinusitis, which like makes your sinuses hurt really bad. Like whatever, wasn't a bad time. Never had like any gnarlier disease that I can think of.
I can't think of anything.
I haven't had many diseases. I have fractured my skull one time, real bad, falling out of a tree. I like,
Damn.
yeah, I was just climbing in my backyard tree. Like I think I was like 7 years old in the middle of the summer. Climbing around, and this branch just, well, I was climbing and like higher than I normally did, and I grab this branch and it breaks, and I slide down a little bit, and I'm like, oh, I can keep going. And so I grabbed another one, it broke,
Oh no.
and I think I was like, oh, I'm gonna test my weight on this. I wonder if it'll hold, and
Oh no.
didn't hold, and I fell and hit a big branch at the bottom, flipped, and and like
Flip, dude.
banged the back of my head on a protruding root, and yeah, it was
Jeez.
just like but
Hurt like a bitch, huh?
oh yeah.
Ow.
I'm glad that, like, if there was a time for that to happen, I'm glad it happened when I was like 7 versus like
Right now.
now or in my teenage years, like where like I don't know, maybe it would be more difficult to recover from, and also like just as a little kid not like always understanding everything or like how serious things can be, you know. It's just like easier to like bounce back from things like that, or it was for me, and just like facing the fact that like, oh man, I might have to go into like brain surgery.
Crazy.
And yeah, but
You know my friend Caleb? You guys know Caleb. He had a dog bite his face once when he was a kid, dude.
Oh
Like, the
shit.
dog just like tackled him and bit his face, dude. Like it wasn't too bad because they got him off it really quick.
Uh-huh.
But, like just some like what the fuck, like because he's got a scar like right here, you can see it, and it's like, oh, that's what that's from, you know. Like, do you ever see someone with a crazy scar and you just want to like ask them, but like you shouldn't ask someone?
Yeah.
Oh, my friend at school, he had fucking open chest surgery, dude. He had like this what is it? Fucking the cardiovascular, muscular dystrophy. So he needed, I forget why he needed his chest open, but he had this crazy scar, like right here. It's like this bright pink scar like this, where they opened him up.
Oh man.
He's had that since he was like.
Being a surgeon is so gnarly.
Yeah, you gotta detach yourself from that shit.
When you're doing that, I think in their minds they're no longer looking at a human body. They are, but like it isn't emotional like that for them. They're just like, here we are at work, you know, going into their work now, doing what they do.
So I was watching some Reddit thread about like when should you have died, and it was some guy who was like, oh yeah, like I had someone like a nurse look at my morgue report after surgery, where like the surgeon was like, oh don't worry, the surgery's gonna be easy, you'll wake up and you'll be fine. And later he had like a girlfriend or something that was a nurse, and she read it and she could only get through like 2 paragraphs, and she's like, this looks like a morgue report. Like,
whoa.
Your pelvis was destroyed. When they opened you up, pieces of your pelvis fell out.
Whoa.
But the surgeon was just like, yeah, don't worry, you'll be fine.
And he was.
Yeah. He just woke up without legs.
Jeez. Mm-mm.
Surgeon
No legs.
simulator.
Well, yeah, because everything was just he got hit by a semi truck while he was on a bike.
Damn.
That's what it was. And like apparently his own femur impaled him through his pelvis.
Damn.
Oh.
Yeah, like, God. Okay, I don't want to talk about that anymore.
I mean, that guy's a badass for being alive.
Yeah, and that surgeon's a badass for just being like, oh yeah, you'll be fine.
Yeah. But that's my surgeon if I ever need one.
Yeah, I think they're kind of trained to do that, even if they're like, you're gonna die, because there's no reason for them to be like, you're gonna die. This surgery is a formality.
Oh God.
Only doing this
so we don't get
because of your
sued.
silly family.
Just so that they don't sue us. God. Yeah, I'm pretty pleased to not have had any major medical situations, but at the same time, I almost wish I was more used to it, because like cutting open my finger, which is a relatively minor injury, felt very serious to me, because it was like up till then pretty much the most like I had ever actually had blood coming out of my body. It's like, oh no, I don't usually damage myself like this. Fuck. It's true. I don't get hurt very often at all.
Yeah.
Not like that. So, you know, that being the most serious thing is maybe not so good, honestly. I don't know.
Yeah.
I fucked my ankle up jumping off a roof drunk.
That is correct.
The classic.
Yeah.
Stuff like that is like, those aren't super gnarly, I guess. Well,
No,
you were.
It clicks, dude.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Shit. So it was like a good blast.
I mean, it's just a sprain. Like my mobility is not as good as it used to be on it though.
Bummer.
Old man Setty.
Yeah. Someday when you're super old, it'll really get you. Like, this dang foot.
Yeah. It's really not that bad. I can still stand on like my tippy toes, you know. So when I can stop doing that, then there's a concern. You know?
Yeah.
So it means I can put 140 pound, well, 70 on one foot.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Aging is gonna be a trip.
We'll live forever. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Now they're gonna invent some cool way to transfer our consciousness into a computer, and we'll
find the Holy Grail.
Completely fine. Oh,
Me
you
and
think
you.
so? Oh,
Yeah.
us personally?
Yes.
Dude,
We'll go on a quest.
very few people, I don't know, well, it's definitely not as talked about as other shows, but Babylon 5 was such an intense science fiction TV series for a long time, that has like pretty much just as good ideas as Star Trek, just a weirder show, I think. But one of the things is like in one episode, this character shows up on the space station who is looking for the Holy Grail, and everyone's like, what the fuck, why are you looking for the Holy Grail? And he's like, well, like, it clearly isn't on Earth because people were looking for it there for a long time, so evidently it's somewhere out here in space. And they're all like, or it doesn't exist. Like, you know, the obvious conclusion is it doesn't exist, but he won't be convinced, and ultimately this other alien race ends up like kind of worshiping him with this like reverence, because it's like, he's a true seeker, like, my god, against all odds he never gives up on his quest. Like, they think that's like the most noble quality a being can ever have, being like truly like dedicated to finding something no matter what. It's I don't know, but
That's
so
cool.
Yeah, the Holy Grail, it's out there in space probably.
We're going.
Yeah, we have to fucking
Yeah, we
find
need
it, Patrick.
Dude, we need it.
So we can live forever.
Maybe Alex Jones knows where it is.
Oh man, he probably claims to have information that would eventually lead you to the Holy Grail.
The
I'm
Nazis hit it. That's what he'd say.
Oh yeah. I mean, in terms of if it existed, likely scenarios for its being disappeared, like, yeah, someone like the Nazis might have hit it. Probably, you know, if it exists, if it's out there.
Yeah, my thought is he wasn't like a rich dude. Jesus, it might have just been made out of wood.
Oh
And
yeah,
it's just not around anymore.
that is a really good point.
Because no one's looking for his cross, because we know that was made out of wood.
Yeah, what is the reason for it to be made out of gold? I guess that right there pretty much comes to the point that it wouldn't exist. The true Holy Grail. There might have been like later on made some kind of an object that like, okay, it's the Holy Grail, and like everyone decided it was the Holy Grail, but it wasn't like, you know, so it's just as good as the Holy Grail.
Yeah,
Close enough.
it's socially it is the Holy Grail.
Uh-huh.
As far as
So-
we're concerned.
Right.
Yeah.
It is the key to immortality. Haha, this Holy Grail that they made like 200 years after he died. I don't know. Yeah, there was never like a Holy Grail in anyone's possession, was there? It's just been always lost.
I don't know too much,
Oh.
man. Yeah.
I don't
think,
know
yeah.
much.
I
It's
don't
been
know.
around for a long time. Like,
Yeah.
well, it's the King Arthur stuff, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just an old myth.
Yeah,
So, Cup of Immortality.
it comes from that whole thing.
Mhm.
Boy, would it ever be cool to find something like that, though.
Oh yeah.
The Fountain of Youth.
Right. Or just, it doesn't
Yeah.
even have to be magical in my mind. It just has to be like a super important artifact from the past that we all think is lost and like, suddenly it's refound. Like I read something recently that I haven't heard much more about since, so maybe it turned out not to be true, but they had dug up some grave that was like really a lot more regal than they were expecting, and they think it might have actually finally been the grave of Alexander the Great, because nobody can find
Where'd they
his...
find it?
I can't remember.
I don't know.
Wherever would make sense for Alexander the Great to be, though, because they were like, for all these reasons, we think this might be Alexander the Great, and I was like, that would make sense. But then again, I never heard anything else about it, and I think if they had found the grave of Alexander the Great, I would have like seen another headline eventually being like, "Yep, it was indeed the grave."
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not going to doubt archaeologists, but like from everything I've heard about Alexander the Great, I feel like a regal burial wouldn't really be his style.
Oh yeah,
He's a very big fan of the worms will eat me too kind of thinking.
interesting.
But he was very, very rich.
He was very
Yeah.
rich, but he often talked about how like, yeah, when I die, I'm just a dead body.
Right.
Like I'm a corpse and I will own only the dirt that's on top of me.
There's a key problem with that, though, is that he's dead, and
Yeah.
they'll do the burial how they,
Yeah,
that
how
is
they
true.
think he'd want it.
Yeah, the
one
other
that
people of the
interests me
time.
is Also, Genghis Khan's is still completely secret.
Oh really?
I think that's the one where like they buried him. They killed everyone they buried him. Then they killed everyone who killed everyone that buried him.
Yeah. Just to make sure that
Just to make sure
one
no
knows.
one ever knew.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That
It
would
was
be
something like that.
the find of the century, dude. Like,
Yeah.
You know, like archaeologically.
For sure.
Be cool as fuck.
All those
Mongolia
people
would be
have died in
stoked.
vain.
Yeah.
It's probably some.
Oh yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah.
We can't let.
Found him.
We killed like 25 people to make sure that would stay hidden. You just like dug it up. Oh, thank you. Jeez.
Probably in China somewhere. That's what I'd guess. Not
Yeah.
in Mongolia.
Yeah, because I would imagine somewhere else in his great empire it would have been, and like modern day
some crazy
Mongolia is like a
place.
very small fraction of what Mongolia used to be.
Underwater base.
Who here do you think has the highest percentage of Genghis Khan?
Oh, interesting question.
I'm sure you have the most Neanderthal. That sounds like an insult.
Not-
That really does. But I mean, it's because
Fucking Neanderthal.
could be, dude. I
no,
would
but
accept.
I think I was reading, or was in a class where they're like, we associate with blue eyes and red hair.
Oh,
So that's why I would suspect, and white skin.
yeah.
But
Oh yeah, that's the thing about the Neanderthals is they were like the white people to begin with. Like that's where the whiteness comes from. Humans were like black more often than not, and then the Neanderthals being like the European ones, it was like the white people thing came from them into us. The modern human race, in terms of like what it actually is pretty interesting, because like. Boy, oh boy, were there ever just a lot of super smart monkeys at one point.
yeah,
But like all very different from each other.
I mean, technically there still are now there's just a lot more super smart monkeys.
But now they're all like one species.
Yeah,
There was like a time when they were all...
that sounded kind of racist what I said. I mean, all humans are primates still. That's-
God damn it.
Yeah, pause.
No, I didn't think it was a racist
Yeah,
statement.
but-
But once upon a time, there was...
Apes, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the apes have shown that they can, like, do sign language and stuff, so we're, like, still sharing the planet with other really intelligent primates.
Yeah.
It's still the situation. We just are the ones with the most tools and, like,
A lot of
organization.
the times when they're doing sign language, though, like Project Nim is a really interesting story about like this chimpanzee being socialized into like a human family and like raised like a human child, and but when Nim was taught sign language, it's never like Nim communicating like, oh, it's a wonderful day today, you know, it's beautiful. It's very much just like me, Nim, eat, Nim, eat, food, now, food, door, you know, like.
Yeah.
Also, if for anyone interested in other animal psychology things or animal intelligence things, I think it's Alex the parrot. I believe I've told you about this.
Yeah.
It's like insane because he actually seemed to use language correctly. He, without being taught, learned the correct way to think and apologize in the correct context.
Whoa.
And he not only did he understand, like, if you had a bunch of things that were green, he'd understand what was green. He'd also understand what was not green. And he introduced that himself. And the story behind that is basically they had a bunch of stuff lined out for him to, like, do the intelligence tests. And he kept going, which one is gray? And there were no gray things on the table. And he kept asking that, and she's like, finally she returned the question, okay, what is gray? He just goes, none.
Oh. Interesting. That's cool. Man, I think it's totally possible that it, like, exposure to other sentient beings like humans can cause other animals to kind of cross a line a little bit and, like, adopt the process. Because, like, you know, creatures can, like, adapt to new conditions within their own lifetimes, which is, like, in its own little way kind of evolving into its new situation. So I think that really can happen sometimes, where because you're hanging out with other sentient creatures, it kind of rubs off onto you in a way, because they seem to, like, eventually learn the behaviors that are associated with, like, being a part of a society and having thoughts, and, like, certain primates have even developed the, like, ability to tell stories and stuff from, like, long ago in their pasts, like personal narratives and shit.
You know, Andrew Jackson's bird got kicked out for cursing too much at his funeral.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's real. Yeah.
It's like, oh fuck.
But I mean, it makes honestly, it makes sense. Like, if it was a bird bonded to him, he probably swore when he was upset. And the bird was probably pretty upset.
He famously swore way too much. Yeah.
Wait, who?
Andrew Jackson.
That's really good.
Which he was a president. Yeah.
Was he the one that made the Trail of Tears?
Ooh,
I think he was.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was indeed the one who made
Well,
the trail.
I'm not going to blame his bird for that. So.
Yeah, that fucking bird. Yeah.
Why didn't you stop him?
Jeez.
That was their land.
Oh my god. I'm sure the bird understood that, but, like, man, what do you do when you're Andrew Jackson's bird? What do you do when you're, like, Hitler's dog?
Like, yeah, assuming dogs, like, actually understand everything. Like, you're Hitler's dog. What are your options?
Right. What do you do as Hitler's dog?
Did they kill Jewish dogs?
I doubt it. I don't think they had
It's supposed to
any.
be a little funny, and I was like really offensive.
I doubt they had any opinion about the dogs and their religion. I wonder if dogs.
Their dogma.
Oh my god.
I mean, oddly enough, speaking of, like, Jewish dogs, there was recently, like, a trend that I heard of that was specifically about, like, Jews doing this. We're having, like, oh crap, what did they call their, like, coming of age ceremony? The
Bar mitzvah.
The bar mitzvah. People were having bark mitzvahs. That's what it was.
Oh my god.
Yeah, people
That's so adorable.
people were doing bar mitzvahs for their dogs.
That's nice.
I don't know. That weirdly connects over to Jewish dogs. So I guess they do, in fact, exist.
Yeah.
People, like,
What
very
happened to all those
specifically.
Jewish dogs, man.
People are specifically like, I have a dog, and also my dog is Jewish, just like me.
Praise
People
Jesus.
probably do that with all their religions, but, like, specifically, people are doing bar mitzvahs. I guess it's just like doing a birthday.
Heaven.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got it. He's got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can do birthdays for pets, and that's the limit for me.
I don't think I've ever done, like, a birthday properly for a pet. It doesn't seem. I don't know. I've thought about doing it because it's, like, cute.
But it's a little much.
It's also a great excuse. Like, I'd have to, like, choose one day and just be like, sorry, dude, I can't hang out today. my dog's birthday.
It's my dog's birthday. Yeah.
Oh, man.
That's the whole point, I think, of doing like random celebrations. It's just to have an excuse to do anything celebratory.
Yeah.
Should have a life where there's as many of those as possible.
One time.
We must celebrate.
Yeah, one time hanging out with someone we all knew. I don't know if we can say his name. He lived with you, Patrick. No, and
You can say anyone's name.
yeah. Oh yeah, Gabe.
Yeah.
After class one time, he went to the skate park and he skated for like half an hour, and he was pretty good. And he was just like, "Oh yeah, no, I gotta go now. It's my friend's cat's birthday, and we're having a party."
Oh, damn.
That sounds familiar.
Kenny, you have to leave?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was probably
All
a
right.
group, like,
Kenny's leaving,
Yeah.
but the show goes on. Don't go
yes.
away. We will continue to serenade you with our stories
Oh, yes.
of old.
Of old. Have you tried to do ASMR?
No.
ASMR?
Well, actually, I mean, in terms of experimenting with, I just sort of reacted to ASMR, but yes, I have done ASMR with this microphone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's the type of microphone you would use to do it.
Yeah.
I haven't like published it. It's always just been shitting around, but
We gotta get famous from our ASMR. College student ASMR.
they're
Live webcam.
ASMR like is one of those like video genres that has a place where it intersects with a type of pornography, like it's
Just
some
a lot.
or like fetishist kind of stuff where it's like ASMR will drift you very quickly into inappropriate territory.
Yep. Yep.
Like a lot of topics of videos on YouTube do, where they just will like inexplicably lead you down the most like sinful rabbit holes ever.
Yep.
To the degree that I don't know if either of you heard of this, but the people have kind of like suddenly started peeling back the layers of like the super deep YouTube and exposing that like there's a big subculture of like people like literally just using it as a platform for certain types of very strange porn. And it's like really easy to literally find yourself in networks of or not traffickers, but you know, child predators fucking going into the comments. And what they do is they go onto like videos of just kids like screwing around, and then they clicked and posted it to YouTube from like their iPad or something. They'll like timestamp the fucking locations of like revealing positions and like stuff that turns them on or whatever, and they'll like go and talk about it in the comment section. And like people are like, if this shit can get through the algorithm on YouTube, then the algorithm is broken. And that pretty much leads into the ranting about the whole YouTube algorithm being broken. But like I think that whole thing is a pretty good example of like how insanely broken the algorithm is. It isn't just about like people not being able to, you know,
I think
get
it's
their
people being able to skirt around certain things.
And what's like really sick is that it actually utilizes a lot of the YouTube kind of the stuff that they like to preach, like it's gotta be about family friendly content. Like this stuff is this stuff is disguised as family friendly content. Really? Specifically so that it gets around the YouTube algorithm and is like pushed up onto all of their...
How popular are these videos?
They're like, you know, some of them are really popular, like millions of views for no reason, but most of them it's like they just have like more views than they ought to for what they are.
And then you just look in the comments and it's just a lot of like
creepy shit, like really just like whoa, and like specifically timestamping like, hey, at like 10 minutes and 58 seconds she's bending over, ooh, you know. And worse than that, but like I won't get super graphic with the kinds of things that they're like timestamping, but there's that. And then of course there are like layers of that sort of behavior that are like a lot further removed in terms of moral corruption from like child exploitation, but it is still like really weird that it's on YouTube. Like recently it's been unearthed that there's like a whole fetish community for like eating foods in like disgusting ways, and they have everyone from like tiny little children like eating food really violently to like super old ladies like eating food really violently, whatever character you want to be eating food violently. And they eat like huge crabs and shit too.
You know what's crazy to me is the amount of people that buy underwear on the internet.
Oh my god,
There's like Reddit like subreddits for this shit. You know what I mean? Like you know, there's money to be made.
It's like a cam girl thing too,
Mm-hmm.
where
Yeah.
you used
Serious money to be made.
used underwear.
Yeah. But just average women, actually, it's been demonstrated that anyone pretty much can sell any woman can sell their underwear on the internet and make some money doing it. If you just like set up the business plan, you know, like, oh, that's all you have to do.
Yeah.
And then you just provide the underwear and they sell. Like, it does blow my mind, actually, like the kinds of things that people spend their time and money on online to like find things that entice them sexually.
There's some freaks out there.
Yeah.
Some real freaks.
I don't like it. It makes me feel not good.
As long as it does not involve children. You know? And it's consensual. I mean,
that's my big rule of thumb. It's just like, don't involve kids. I think, like, in my career, I will avoid working with children pretty much ever. Like, I won't do it. I won't, like, specifically, like, put kids in videos or movies or anything I'm ever making, because I just, like, you can't put that online. You just cannot. The internet is actually dangerous.
Working some events at this indoor skate park back home, there's a lot of photographers that come along, you know, and I remember, like, well, I don't remember a specific person really, but I remember people being like concerned about him. Like, another person I was working with was very like, there's something weird about that guy, you know, and he was, and like how he's like shooting photos of them, like, so yeah, I think it's good to like look out for that, you know.
But
do you know what 8chan is? 8chan.
8chan?
Yeah.
I've heard of it.
So it's like 4chan, but worse.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
That's my sort of understanding of it.
I tried to go on it once just out of sheer curiosity, and the site just doesn't look good either. It's just kind of like, I mean, 4chan's kind of ugly too, you know, like in format.
Not polished very well, yeah.
Yeah. And this game developer, THQ Nordic, did an AMA on it.
On 8chan?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it's an Ask Me Anything. So they were on there, and they, it's just funny because I just saw it on Reddit. They're like, yeah. And you, like, it was more of a question of, like, why are they doing this? Like, whose idea was it to do this? And, like, there's all these apologies on the internet now and shit. Like, if anyone wants to go read an interesting discussion, go read that.
Yeah, 8chan is one of those places. I used to be a lot more into, like, exploring the dark web. Like, I don't know. I guess I'm just that type of person. The really dark ththings, I always want to, like, peek over the edge and be like, what the fuck are you guys doing?
Yeah.
This is fucked.
I've
Like,
spent some time on 4chan, but not too.
4chan is a fun place to go if you want to see some people doing some really dark things. You know, it's like how I looked in that needle in the needle depositing. I was telling you about that, Patrick. How
What the fuck?
I checked. Like, you know how all the bathrooms have those needle disposal things?
It say biohazard
Right.
on it. Yeah.
I looked inside it. I wanted to know if there were needles in there. Because, like, in my mind, it would have been crazy if there were. And there were 4. There were 4 injection needles just hanging out in there. It's just like on-campus building.
There's other reasons why though people inject.
I guess, like,
stuff.
it could be your, like,
It's crack.
your insulin needle or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. At the same time, I've seen people who, like, do injections of insulin, and, you know, it's not like a heroin needle looking kind of device. It's a different, it's like more of a household looking thing.
So these look
I
like
guess.
syringes.
Yeah, they were like drug syringes, 100%, like the classic like orange little thing, like all of the fucking heroin is in.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my god, like someone is here that just actually uses this box. But yeah, that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that describes my attraction to things that are like dark and kind of edgy pretty well. And like, I just kind of want to know if there are
Pretty
needles
sure
in
I've actually
here.
held a heroin needle before.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we found
Scary.
at this like skate spot by my house. We found someone's wallet and a needle.
Ooh.
And edgy.
One time,
Edginess makes me want to get tested. It's just like thinking about that. Ugh.
yeah. but one time, Johnson Creek is a part of Portland that is notorious, or at least it used to be notorious, for having like a lot of drug use and drug problems. And very specifically, what all of the adults in the adjacent neighborhood would always be telling their kids is like, don't go running around down in that creek without like shoes on or something, because people do just like chuck their used needles into the water, into everything. Like, I think it might have gone through a cleanup more recently, because I've stopped hearing things like that, and the whole area just kind of has a much less sketchy vibe now. It's like a lot more, feels a lot more like the park it's meant to be, I guess. It used to be really like kind of dirty and bad. But in any case, there is like, or there used to be this bridge that goes over, and there used to be this hole that you could climb into the foundation of the bridge. And of course, when I found that as a kid, I was stoked. I was like, let's go in here. It's going to be like a fort or something. Go in there. And like, I don't know if there was anyone in there with me, but what there was a lot of trash and just shitloads of needles. Yeah. Like the most I've ever seen, pretty much. Wow. Like they were just mountains of them, pretty much. Like coating the floor, and in a few places, there were piles. I feel like I just heard something like hit the roof.
Oh no, it was Patrick dropping his phone.
Oh. But yeah, that place was super sketchy, and I was just like, oh my god, and explored and then ran out, you know. I've always liked to go into the crevice.
The deep dungeon.
Yeah, just to see what gnarliness there is.
Yeah, there's this little cave out in this beach, Moonstone Beach in Arcata. Like, just go into this little cave, and sometimes like sea lions get washed up in there, and you just hear you know, shit. Like really like some like pissed animals, you know.
Big animals too.
Big animals. Yeah.
That's really scary right there. It's a different kind of scary though. That's like facing up against nature scary versus like, ooh, the darkness of humanity. But both in a cave, it says a lot about the kind of shit you can find inside of caves. Darkness always dwells within, whether it is the darkness brought upon by a lack of light, a darkness brought upon by the despair, or darkness brought on by true danger.
Or the sudden destruction of our sun.
Yeah, that too. The sun
could be very dark suddenly.
Could just suddenly explode. Dude, or shrink, rather.
It just disappeared.
Straight up was gone.
Just like gone.
Wow.
Well, like...
Well, we'd all die.
We wouldn't know for like 10 minutes, and then we'd be like, wait a second. Something's going on here.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to tell for a little bit, like, so the light has to travel. But it'd be like, it would be a big moment, dude. We'd all die. I think we would.
There's actually, I mean, most people would die, but like, it's shocking how many people would actually probably be able to survive and like continue on some kind of a civilization where like, yeah, we're in the dark now, our planet is adrift through space.
The trees are gonna die.
But you're living, like, we've proven we can do spaceships real well, and if we can like set up a very large spaceship here on the ground, you know, it's actually not that hard of a problem to like save a bunch of people and be in like a self-reliant habitat.
I wonder how long it would take for it to be, you know, at that point where like when it goes dark, how much time do we have?
It's essentially until it gets cold enough that the atmosphere itself freezes and falls as snow.
Yeah, see, that's the question is how
because eventually Earth like loses its atmosphere because it all like condenses and falls to the ground, and so you'd be walking around and it would be like you're in a snowy landscape. It would feel like snow, but around you would be the vacuum of space. And like harsh radiation blasting you.
Yeah, that's true too. You'd have to go into the caves.
Right, so it would be life underground, but you could actually go in like towards the core of the earth much deeper, and you could use that heat, and so we wouldn't even be without power and stuff. We would be we'd be like, we wouldn't be fine, but like we'd be good. Like, yeah, survivable for sure. And then you know,
it would be do or die time for science.
Right, for sure. Like do or die, and then you know the people who do will be the ones who survive, and then they would probably actually be a very like robust and productive culture in and of themselves. And so what they could accomplish might actually be quite shocking. Like they could be like, okay, well now we need to take the Earth to a new sun, and like. Even though it seems insane, like, projects of the scale are possible. Like, build a giant-ass thruster and fucking give us the nudge that eventually in like 1,000 years we'll fall into orbit around another star. And like the atmosphere will reheat, and like basically to those people it would just be this like crazy future day that like, oh, someday the chosen people will arrive at their destination, and like there will be a sun in the sky again, and the sky will be back in the first place, and we'll be able to walk outside unimpeded and see the world again. But in the meantime, it would just be like their world would be dark. You'd have to wear a spacesuit, and it would just be like all kinds of empty cities slowly rotting.
That sounds like a great science fiction plot.
We should call it.
Oh, you want to call it?
That was a good ending point.
Yeah, I think that's a good point as well.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. Thanks for listening
Peace.
to the ShoeBox Show. This has been Keegan Van Hook.
Patrick Setty.
And Steven Papale.
And Kenny was here earlier, but he left. All right, farewell.